Hello and welcome to the latest ATTA presentation. Today we'll be hearing from James Denny, Agent Training Manager at Asilia Africa. Subject of this presentation is Asilia Africa, genuine safaris, genuine difference, 3 camps that define us. So James, over to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to everyone who's taken the time to tune into this presentation. I hope it provides some much needed relief from hearing yet more news about coronavirus, and hopefully I can transport you from wherever you're self-isolating into the wilds of East Africa. My name is James. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes or so going through 3 of our camps that highlight the diversity of our portfolio and showcase some of the amazing conservation work that we're able to support. But first, I just want to give a little bit of context by explaining about us as a company and what we can offer you as businesses and clients on the ground. Asilia means genuine in Swahili, which perfectly sums up everything that we're about and strive to be. We offer genuine safari experiences in unique East African locations that benefit both people and the natural environment. Asilia was officially founded 16 years ago, but the origins of the company date right back to the 40s, when our founders were running pioneering mobile camps in the Serengeti and the Mara. Today, we've grown to employ nearly 1,000 staff and have a portfolio of 23 camps and lodges. The reason this is all important is because we're a legacy company and we've endured through all manner of challenges over the years. Obviously, the current global situation poses new questions, but we couldn't be better placed to overcome these challenges. And while we wait for travel advisories to lift and for it to become safe to travel again, our doors will remain open and we're ready to welcome guests as soon as we possibly can. Many of you will know that as well as running 23 camps, we also offer a full ground handling service with some of the finest guides in East Africa, thanks to our extensive guide training program. We're also one of the most reputable DMCs in East Africa, and when you choose to book with Asilia, you can essentially offer, we essentially offer an extension of your own office with a dedicated team to deal with every element of the safari. Our sales consultants help at every stage of the booking process. Our operations teams in Tanzania and Kenya ensure logistics on the ground run seamlessly. Our camp staff obviously upkeep impeccable standards across all of our camps and lodges. And then our agent relationship management team are here to help agents try and keep them happy and make sure that you have all the necessary tools to sell Asilia effectively. Now, before we delve into some of our camps, I just want to quickly show off our vehicles. They're all less than 5 years old and are constantly being updated and upgraded. They've been carefully designed and are maintained by our in-house mechanics, who ensure all vehicles are in excellent condition and checked before every single safari. We've also just installed free Wi-Fi ready for the upcoming season. This will be available not only in our city transfer vehicles, which you can see in the top left-hand corner there, but also on our closed-sided vehicles, which are used for full-board driving itineraries, which are in the bottom right. The Wi-Fi is purely for long transfers and obviously won't be operational when clients are out on game drives, but it's a nice thing to be able to offer guests. We've also recently added 4 of these specially adapted photographic vehicles to our fleet. They're completely open-sided with 360-degree swivel seats. They're perfect for anyone who's really into their photography or anyone that just wants to feel like they're going to be part of the film crew for the next BBC wildlife documentary. These are available for private hire from any of our camps in Ruaha, the Masai Mara, the central and northern Serengeti. We're also immensely proud of our fantastic team of guides. We've developed our own rigorous guide training program, and our team of approximately 70 guides can be considered as some of the best in the business. I'm now going to go through a few of my favorite camps so you can get a bit of a taste of what we can offer. The beautiful image captured here is actually not one of the camps I've got time to touch on today. This is the Highlands, which is by the Ngorongoro crater, but it's one of our more iconic camps. So we take immense pride in building camps in pioneering locations where tourism has had very little foothold before. This creates economic opportunity in areas where there may not have been much before and safeguards the areas for future generations. All of our guests leave knowing that they've contributed positively to the local people and the surrounding wild areas. As you can see, we have 23 camps in East Africa. 3 are in Zanzibar, 6 are in Kenya, 10 are in northern Tanzania, and then 4 are in southern Tanzania. Today, I'm going to focus on Sayari, which is the second one down in the northern Serengeti there. Robando, which is right far on the left-hand side of the screen, and Old Pedgeter Bush Camp, which is the furthest north one, as you see there. To make things simple, we've separated our 23 camps into 3 different categories: comfort, classic, and reserve. Whilst the style, level of luxury, and price point may change as you move through the categories, all of our camps deliver the same exceptionally high standards of hospitality, service, and expert guiding. They're also all in pioneering areas and contribute positively to the location they're in. So comfort is our lead-in level. They're excellent value for money, and we purposefully pared back the level of luxury on these to make guests feel as close to nature as possible. Many are therefore tented camps, but they still come complete with large, comfortable double beds, ensuite bathrooms, and so on. Then classic is a slight step up in price, style, and facilities. The bulk of our camps sit within that category, many of which are award-winning and have unique designs like the geodesic domes you've just seen at the Highlands. Then the reserve level is our premier lodges. Only 3 of our properties sit in this category at the moment, and they have large designer rooms, spas, swimming pools, premium collection of wines, fine dining, things like that. So it's just basically a higher service offering. And I've picked out a camp from each category, and you'll see that every camp is unique and offers something completely different, but it should hopefully give you a taste of roughly what to expect within each tier. So starting with Sayari, which is in our reserve category. Sayari is situated in the remote northern part of the Serengeti, and it's about 15 minutes south of the Mara River. Sayari was a pioneer and is a real success story. It began life as a traditional mobile camp, moving through the Serengeti, following the journey of the migration. In 2009, Sayari became the first permanent camp in the northern Serengeti. At that time, the area was a hotspot for local poachers. There were very few other ways to get by, so villagers had turned to hunting the Serengeti's wildlife for food and just to make a living. The arrival of the camp then secured the long-term conservation of this area and allowed employment for the local communities living on the park's boundary. Many more safari camps have now opened in that area, and tourism is flourishing. Poaching is now almost non-existent. Wildlife populations are thriving, and it's generally considered as one of the best game viewing areas in the whole of Tanzania. As with all of our camps, location is absolutely key. And Sayari is just 15 minutes south of the Mara River, which means that sightings like this, a dramatic crossing of the Mara River, are possible in high season. The locations become kind of even better now that the mobile camps in this area that used to be very near the river have now, the sites have been moved a lot further south. So we're now one of the closest lodges to the Mara River. I've left this slide in just to give you an idea of what the lodge has looked like up until now, but we're currently in the process of carrying out a total refurb. So these images are just renderings, and we will release professional images as soon as we can. But the camp is closed at the moment. It's shut in January and is due to reopen its doors on June the 1st. The 15 rooms are all getting a complete makeover, and we'll have sliding doors that open onto wraparound decks with views across the Serengeti. Bathrooms have freestanding bathtubs and both an indoor and an outdoor shower. And as you can see, it's going to be just a really luxurious setup. Now, Sayari is our largest camp with 15 rooms. So we split the camp into 2 separate sections, and each runs separately with its own main area and swimming pool and so on. So there's loads of space to relax in between game activities. Now, this is something that I'm probably most excited about. We're installing the world's first ever solar-powered microbrewery in the bush. The brewery will make beer and soft drinks, as well as purifying water and producing sparkling water, all just using solar power. So we're going to be able to produce up to 2,000 litres per month of 4 different types of beer. This is obviously far more than Sayari will need, so the beer will be distributed to our other camps in the Serengeti. We'll also be able to clean 70,000 litres of water per month, treating water, removing all impurities, including microplastics, leaving perfect drinking water. So that's going to be distributed, well, it's going to be used obviously in Sayari, but it's also going to be distributed to our other camps in the Serengeti, as well as the surrounding communities. Just to give you some idea of the environmental benefit of just that element of this, is that if that water was being consumed in half-litre plastic bottles, that would equate to 140,000 plastic bottles per month, which are no longer needed. We're now going to look at Robando Island Camp, which is within our classic category. Robando is another amazing camp with a fascinating good news story. The island is in the southwestern corner of Lake Victoria, and over 3/4 of the island is blanketed in this incredible, untouched, pristine rainforest. Bar a handful of park wardens, some wildlife researchers, and then our camp staff, the island is completely uninhabited. So it's purely a refuge for threatened animals, and those include the rare Situatunga, elephant, giraffe. There's over 200 species of bird, including African grey parrot, and probably most notably wild chimpanzees, which I'll go into more detail about in a moment. Now, despite what many people think, Robando is actually surprisingly easy to get to. Flights from the Serengeti take just 1 hour and 10 minutes, and flights from Kigali take 2 hours, including a stop to clear immigration. We've heavily subsidized these flights for anyone staying 3 nights or more at our camp. So this makes it really easy and affordable to combine chimpanzees either before or after the gorillas in Rwanda, or adding on some time seeing the chimps after a safari in the Serengeti. As you can see, Robando has a stunning beachside setting on the edge of the rainforest. It's a great place to relax, and the noises at night are absolutely incredible, and they get some amazing sunsets as well. We built this beautiful wooden deck overlooking Lake Victoria, which is a lovely place to have breakfast. And we've also got a lovely pool to cool off in the heat of the day. So there's hippos and crocodiles actually in Lake Victoria. So this is pretty essential if guests want to swim. As you can see, the 8 cottages have more of a beach feel than our safari camps, which is why Robando works so well for some R&R after a safari. Lots of agents actually use Robando as an alternative to flying to Zanzibar because it's so near the Serengeti. However, as I said, the main reason for most people to come to Robando is to see the wild chimpanzees. So in the 60s, 16 chimpanzees were rescued from illegal wildlife trade and circuses from all areas of the world, and they were re-released onto Robando. The group of chimpanzees has now grown from that original 16, and their numbers are now more than 60. And it's the only place in the world where chimps have been successfully released back into the wild. The chimps are still not as accustomed to humans as they are in some other areas in East Africa. So guests are actually able to join in the rehabilitation process. This basically means that there's no strict 1 hour time limit to how long you can spend with the chimp. So that's pretty exciting as well. Now moving on to one of our camps in Kenya. This is Old Pejeta Bush Camp, which is in the Laikipia region in central Kenya. And Old Pejeta Bush Camp, when we look at it in a second, this is in our comfort level. So Old Pejeta, for those that don't know, is another pioneering example of conservation. The Conservancy is probably best known for being home to, sadly, the last 2 remaining northern white rhinos in the whole world. There are some fascinating efforts to try and bring back this species from the brink of extinction. But Old Pejeta is also home to East Africa's largest population of black rhino, as well as good numbers of southern white rhino. It's a big 5 destination and has some other rare species like Grevy's zebra, Bass's oryx, and wild dog. So it's just a great game viewing area. We now have our first electric safari vehicle based here, which means 0 emissions, obviously, and no use of petrol or diesel. But it also means that the vehicle's almost silent, so guests can get extremely close to wildlife without disturbing them, and some clients have had some amazing wildlife sightings. The camp itself, as I said, is comfort level, and therefore it's one of our most affordable camps. It's got a lovely raised restaurant which overlooks the Uasu Nyero River, and on clear days you can see right across to the snowy peaks of Mount Kenya. There's also a separate cozy lounge area with a log fire at the back, which you can see there. Old Pejeta Bush Camp is a small, intimate camp and only has 7 tents. You can see that the style of the camp is much simpler than some of our other camps, but they're still extremely spacious and comfortable, with huge double beds, ensuite bathrooms, and so on. The biggest draw is probably the amount of and diversity of activities available here. There's just so much to do, from visiting the endangered species closure, which I mentioned, to horse riding, going out with canine anti-poaching units, and so on. For this reason, it works really well for families. Kids absolutely love it. The last thing I want to show you today is our new Asilia Adventures program. So we wanted to find a way to bring some of the more unique locations and experiences that Kenya and Tanzania have to offer to our guests. There seems to be an increasing demand for people that want something a bit different, something more active or immersive than a traditional safari can offer. We also realized the difficulty of encouraging people to travel outside of peak season, which is why we created Asilia Adventures. We currently have 15 adventures to choose from, which offer a variety of experiences from walking expeditions to horse riding, water sports, health and wellness, and so much more. They're essentially mini bolt-on safaris where all the logistics, expert guiding, activities, and accommodation are all packaged together, so it's super easy to sell. They're only available between November and May, and this should give you a hook to encourage travelers to venture outside of high season, when expert guides are more available to showcase their favorite corners of Kenya and Tanzania. So this is just 6 of the 15 options that we have currently. And as you can see, we've got everything from authentic cultural experiences, log cabin stays, horse riding, multi-day treks through the Great Migration with fly camping, and so on. So I'd just like to close by saying how important it is that we encourage business to Africa's wildest areas as soon as travel bans are lifted. Asilia, along with many other safari companies and conservation groups, have worked so hard over the last few years to protect local communities, precious ecosystems, and endangered wildlife. And this is obviously only possible if we have guests traveling to our camps. Things will obviously get better, and when they do, I just want you all to know that Asilia remains open for business as normal. Thank you so much for listening.
Great, James. Thank you very much. Fantastic presentation. I've just got a couple of questions. You mentioned your in-house guide training program. How does that work, and why do you think that's necessary?
Yeah, so Tanzania actually doesn't have a set guiding standard, unlike other countries in Southern Africa, like the Fagasa model in South Africa, and there's similar higher levels in Zimbabwe and so on. Tanzania doesn't have that. Which basically means that anyone can really, if you've got a vehicle, you can basically claim to be a guide. And so we've kind of created our own guide training program, incorporating a number of different elements from those other training programs in Southern Africa. The whole thing begins with a 3-day interview process, and that typically receives about 500 applications in Arusha. From that 500, we whittle it down to about 20 candidates, and they then begin a year-long mentorship program where they work alongside one of our senior guides. There's tests every single week, and it's extremely difficult. Basically, once they come through that full year, you'd probably expect about 10 to 12 people to probably, from the initial 500 applications, to actually make it as a junior guide. And then once they've had that year's experience, they can then start taking guests out. There's then further training and assessments each year, and the guides progress with their experience. They gain additional qualifications and so on, and it's a really good way for us to kind of make sure that there's a certain base level of understanding, and then there's career progression and development for our guides to try and keep them on board.
Fantastic. Sounds like a wonderful program.
Mm.
You also mentioned that every guest that stays with you contributes positively towards the local people and the surrounding area.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, there's 2 sort of main parts to it, really. I'd say operationally, obviously, we buy locally, grow our own produce where we can, and try and reduce our own kind of carbon footprint. We're a good employer. We offer staff opportunities and recruit locally and so on. And then we also limit our fossil fuel usage by using sustainable energy sources like solar and recycling and everything. So all of our camps are very kind of low footprint. But bigger than that, every guest that comes to us, and we were the first safari company to introduce this in East Africa, they pay a mandatory $5 per person per night contribution to our Asilia Giving program, which is a separate kind of arm of Asilia, and that's our charitable side. So those donations, along with private donations from donors, allows us to basically support a number of different initiatives, some of which I've kind of mentioned a little bit in this, with be it chimp rehabilitation or anti-poaching units and so on. All of this equates, I mean, I don't have last year's figures. I think in 2018, it was $300,000 we were able to invest in various conservation programs, and that split exactly 50-50 between supporting local communities and supporting conservation and wildlife. So every single guest contributes in that way, and that's really, really fantastic. And in the areas where it's possible, we try and encourage guests to kind of engage with that and get to see sort of first-hand experience of the various communities and conservation groups and things that we're supporting from our camps.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, James, thank you very much for a fantastic presentation and just giving us a brief insight into some of the Asilia camps and all of the various initiatives that you're doing around East Africa. So thank you for your time, and thank you for those listening, and keep an eye out for our next presentation.
Thanks very much.